Welcome back to Life After Corporate, my friends. And if you're new to our show, welcome home. This is the place you want to spend the most time. If you are just starting out in business, or if you are an established coach or consultant or service provider, and things have just stalled for you and you want some inspiration, and it's also for you if you want to keep up with what's working now, because the world is changing so rapidly. New technologies are always on the scene. We have strategies that worked yesterday that don't work today. And so today we're talking about email marketing. And I am almost embarrassed to admit that this is the first time we are having this conversation in 4 years of this podcast, over 200 episodes, and we have failed to address the value of email marketing. So that changes today. My guest is Shannon Hernandez. She is a messaging and marketing strategist, and I'm so delighted to have you here with us today, Shannon.
Thank you. I'm so excited to be here, and I feel honored to be bringing the email conversation after 4 years back to your
Oh
show.
my God. We've covered every single topic imaginable around sales and marketing and establishing your business, getting your trademark and branding and all that. And we have failed to address, let's call it the elephant in the room, that the holy grail of marketing and business development and relationship development is that journey from social media conversations into more intimate conversations in the inbox. And so, Shannon, I'm so grateful that you're sharing your wisdom with our audience here today. Share with us your philosophy about email marketing for deepening these relationships, and how does that help entrepreneurs grow their revenues as well as their impact?
Yeah. Well, I first want to say from day one, so I've been a business owner for 13 years this year. From day one, I was so grateful for my coach way back then who said, "We're going to get you an email list started." And of course, at the time, I was like, what the hell does that mean? Like, I didn't know what that meant. But that has put me on this journey of really dialing in email marketing strategy and messaging for email, all the know, like, and trust that we know is so important to the people who willingly give us their names and emails to join our list. And so the number one thing I really want to open with today is I have fallen in love with email marketing as an ethical tool for marketing because it is permission-based marketing. If you're doing it correctly, which means you're letting people opt in and opt out at their own will, and you're using what we call kind messaging and ethical marketing practices, you can really make your email list a beautiful, beautiful community. And so you'll often hear me say, in my own trainings or out and about on the speaking tour I'm currently on, or wherever that is, if we start just thinking about the shift from email list to email community, the whole energy shifts. And there's just so much fun you can have building a beautiful community that where email is now a two-way conversation tool and not just a broadcast of messages out to a list.
It's such an important conversation that you shift the perspective to community, because we're all taught when we first get started, oh, you have to have a CRM system, you have to have an email list. But no one tells us what to do with that email list and how to build community. So, what is the secret for building community versus just having an email list where it tends to be a one-way spam conversation? And I just want to be clear and come clean, because I have been guilty of this. Like a year ago, I said to my team, I said, we just promote to people all the time. We lost our strategy or our rhythm of having real conversations. And I used to write meaningful emails and have people respond and say, you really hit my heart today. And we lost sight of that. We're starting to bring it back, but let's talk about why that's so important.
Yeah. Well, and we all go through these shifts and changes, right? Like we'll have the strategy and then something comes in the way. And then they're like, oh, we just got to communicate with the email list. And then we're just like going quick about it. And So one, it's okay. You're on the right track now. So give yourself some grace. But really what you said was this idea of asking for replies and really making it a two-way conversation. When I started doing that years and years ago in my email, it just felt different. And one of the biggest hurdles, I think, to people prioritizing email marketing over social media marketing, at least when they come to us, what we're hearing is, I don't get that immediate gratification of a comment.
Mm.
I don't get that immediate gratification of a like, right? Of like, all I feel like is this email goes out, and do I know, minus my stats that I can see on the back end, is anyone really reading this? And so I will always start with the question, are you asking people to reply?
Yeah.
And the caveat to that is, when we ask people to reply, you better have set aside time to reply back. Or it's going to feel just like social media when those of us who use social media to be social, we go and we reply and we ask questions, and then nobody ever comes back to the original post, right? So we don't want that to happen. But there's some really fun things I've been doing in email. I'd love to just share some with you on this idea of like, how do we make it more fun and community based? So one is ask for replies. And what we found working with ourselves and thousands of clients, right, is if you ask for a reply on something very specific, of course, you're going to get a better answer, right? So I just wrote an email for that'll go out in a couple of weeks. And one of the things that I was talking about is how I reached nearly $1 million in revenue by subtracting 80% of my to-do list. And how this was completely like counterintuitive to what I thought would happen, right? But like, I just kept looking at this to-do list, Deborah, every day and adding more to it, and it was never getting done. And I'm like, why am I beating myself? I am never going to get this to-do list done. And so at the end of this email, where I tell them like the kinds of things I subtracted and where I really decided to focus 20% of my time, which is on revenue generating activities, I said at the end, is there something in your life, business or personal, that you need help simplifying? Hit reply and let me know.
Mm-hmm.
And that, I'm going to get a lot of replies to it. I know, because I know the habits of my email, but I also know replies in an email start the conversation where you can deepen the relationship. And that's really why you want to prioritize. If you're asking people to reply, you're going to go back, right?
Mm-hmm.
I imagine people are going to say, trying to get my family fed every week is like a big task and I need to simplify it. And guess what? I've gone through that route myself. I can certainly offer a quick tip on that. So that's one of the ways that we've been having a lot of fun in email. Another thing that we're getting ready to experiment with is, I don't know if you remember, Deborah, but well, when I was a child, and probably when you were a child, there were these books called Choose Your Own Adventure. Do you remember?
Mm-hmm.
You would read a couple pages, and then at the bottom, it'd say, if you want this story to end this way, click here. I mean, go to this page. If you want the story to end this way, go to this page. Well, we've been playing with, how can I bring this to email and like make it super fun, where like I start telling a story, and then if you want it to end this way, click here. And if you want it to end this way, click here. And I've been thinking about this idea for like, honestly, 5 years. And this is the year that I'm actually going to debut it, because I think, one, it's fun. It's different, right? It's, well, we are Joyful Business Revolution. So it's revolutionary in the thinking of how to get people to engage. But what I think is going to happen is they're going to click there for one, and then they're going to say, just like we used to do in the books, well, what if I would have chose that one? What happens over here, right? So I'm having a lot of fun playing with that idea. I've also started putting in on my Thursday emails. So I send a Monday community newsletter, and I send a Thursday community newsletter. And my Thursday is really resources and people that I trust. It's called Trusted Resources for Your Growth. So this podcast will appear on that Thursday, but I've started taking Taylor Swift, something came very apparent. She would start planning what was called Easter eggs, and people would go on these little Easter egg hunts on her social media, and she'd be dropping little clues about stuff. And I thought, if I could just have some fun with this concept in email, what would it look like? And so every Thursday, somewhere in the email, I'm putting like a fun fact. And it's a fun fact about me or something that's happening in my life or something that I'm excited about. And it makes no rhyme or reason where it appears. It could be in the middle of a paragraph. It could be in the footer of the email. People are responding to that. And they're responding with like, oh, this reminds me of a time that I did this with my mom too. And it's been so fun to kind of just drop these little fun facts in and see what happens, right? When people find them, the little Easter eggs planted along the way.
I love that idea. And well, first of all, I love the creativity and the approach that you're taking and having fun with your community and engaging them with the fun activities too, because email can be a drudgery, right? It's a thing we have to get through. And we all have our favorite people, right? When their weekly email or biweekly email jumps into our email box, it's like, oh, let me see what so-and-so has to say. And so it's beyond the clever subject line is what I'm hearing from you is it's beyond the clever subject line. It's beyond even the authentic self-revealing story that you might put in there, but it's about really bringing some fun into the relationship and
Mhm.
making it a two-way conversation and a two-way adventure, really, in your
Yeah.
inbox. And I think that must be extraordinary. I imagine your open rates are like off the charts.
Yeah, they're like between 60 and 70%
That's
most emails
crazy.
that go out.
Right.
Yeah.
And so for people who don't know what standard is, I mean, standard is like 25%, 25%. If you're really good, if you're really bad, you're getting 12 to 15. If you're really good, you're probably getting 30 to 35, but 60 to 70 is like off the charts. It's unimaginable. So,
Yeah.
listen up, everyone. I hope you're taking notes. Um, so how can we all have to sell things too, right? So we have our webinars, our workshops, our podcasts. It's how for most coaches and consultants, it's how we get clients is inviting them to a challenge or a webinar or workshop that we're hosting. How can we balance that need to promote our offerings and having the conversation? Like, how have you been able to balance that? Because you do webinars and workshops and you're speaking all over the place. How do you balance that? You have your Monday and Thursday, which are typically nurturing emails, as we would call it, right? How do you balance the promotion? And do you think that I'm just jumping to a conclusion here. Do you think the nurturing that you do gives you more leeway and more of a permission to share things that you're offering for sale?
Okay. So you did jump to a conclusion, but it's a good conclusion to jump to. But I think, well, I know one of the reasons we have the results we have with email is because I just decided a long time ago, I'm in business and I need to sell my stuff,
Hmm.
period. Right? So every email I send, it doesn't matter if it's a story about spending time with my mom last week in Illinois, or we have a workshop coming up in a couple weeks. Every email has a call to action. And I just trained my audience from the beginning. This is a place where we're going to have fun and I'm going to sell because I'm in business. And so it took that feeling away of like, oh, am I promoting too much? Oh, are people going to get tired? That is not even a conversation I have anymore in my head, which has been really nice because we all know, and it happens to the best of us. We get into a promo period and we need to like promo something for 5 days in a row or whatever to make sure we get as many people to the thing that would find value in whatever said thing is. And those little things go off in our brain. Well, what are they going to think? Oh no, I'm selling something. What am I going to do here? Oh, will they unsubscribe? I just was like, okay, this is permission-based marketing. They get to choose at any time to come in or come out of the email list, right? The email community. And I literally have a call to action for something in every single email. And I think the most important thing I want everyone to know here is I sell stuff all day long. Now, what do I mean by that? I sell, quote unquote, sell a sales call, because that's where we want to talk to people, right? We're in the consulting business. So I don't, I might just mention my book and say, hey, today I was thinking about a chapter in my book, and I link the book. I don't even have to do a call to action that says go buy the book. They're going to follow the breadcrumb trail, right? They're going to follow it if they're interested. And so I really have operated in the last 6 years of this business on a couple of foundational premises. One, my email is my community, and I'm going to have fun with them. All right. And we talked about that. Two, I'm in business to sell stuff, and I'm going to put a call to action in every single email. It might be hey, our program is open, take $500 off, click here. Or it might be, hey, in my book, blah, 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 with a link to the book, right? Like, that doesn't matter. And then the third thing that I decided, and this goes against what every single person who teaches messaging strategy and email marketing will say, which was why I did it, to be honest, because I'm kind of the contrarian and I'm just going to do what I want. My emails are pretty much long form, because I found out that the best clients are ones who actually read. So I don't do dancing TikTok videos. I don't do short form content. All of my blog posts are like 2,000 words or more, right? So that was the first thing. The second thing that goes with that point was I made a decision that the people who are reading my emails and who were going to be the best candidates to work for us could choose between 3 or 4 calls to action and determine what was appropriate for them. And this was the biggest stance that I took, Deborah, because I learned email marketing from all those bro marketers that we have come to hate and had to undo our thinking around how they taught us, right, in the funnels. And I sat down one day 6 years ago and I said, gosh, my people are pretty smart, and I'm pretty smart too. I bet if I put 3 calls to action in here, they could choose which one or which 2 or which 3 would be appropriate for them. And that was the most liberating thing that I've ever done, probably in email marketing to date.
So giving people a choice of their own adventure.
Absolutely.
So if people are just getting started, most of our listeners are they're either pre-launch or they're in their first 3 years of launching a business. What are some of the mistakes that you see people make early on, and how do you advise someone who's just getting started to get their email list warmed up?
Yeah. Well, the first thing I like to say is we all start from zero.
It's true.
Even if we lose our social media accounts, which I've seen happening more and more, you have to start over. We all start from zero. So don't make yourself wrong about it. There was a time I had 0 people on my email list. And by the way, I keep a healthy email list. I keep about 3,500 at the most. I have a very, very, sustainable, joyful business. So the other thing I had to let go of, a mistake, if you will, is believing that you needed to have 10,000 or 5,000 or whatever those numbers are. Like, for consultants, we don't need that. We can't even ever work with that many people at one time. So keep it in perspective, right? And make sure that you are actually paying attention and measuring what matters to you and to the services you're offering. That's like the number one thing that I think people make the mistake on. I'd say the number 2 thing is people have been instructed for a long time to develop a quote unquote quick lead magnet or a quick opt-in. And I went on an exploration 3 years ago, and I went and looked at all the things I ever opted into. And I found most of them, about 90% of them, were just junk. There was no value whatsoever. It was one of those quick things that all these people back in the day told us, well, just build a quick thing and put it out. And so I spent a year perfecting what I call the level 5 lead magnet. And this is something that I would just encourage everyone to, 1, invest in, 2, we have a free training on it. Like, I can get Deborah the link so she can include it in the show notes. But it's the level 5 buyer is the buyer who has already done the 4 things before. So
Right.
level 1, they don't even know they have a problem. Level 2, they have a problem, but they're not looking for a solution. Level 3, they've looked for solutions, they DIY'd it. Level 4, they know you now exist, and the only thing stopping them is giving the credit card for level 5, right? And when you develop a lead magnet for the level 5 buyer, it becomes a much more sophisticated lead generation tool. And so I always tell people when they're first starting out, yes, if you're going to prioritize email, let's get you a lead magnet that really speaks to your most ideal client. Because what I found is when I develop these for this brand and when I help people develop them, we take the person from the moment they come into the email list to a buyer in less than 30 days. And I'm
Wow.
talking a buyer of a quote unquote high ticket consulting or coaching package or program,
That's
right?
amazing. It's incredible.
Yeah. And there's an art to it, right? So I had to really put on my psychology of messaging hat and really I deep dive with people understanding who is their most ideal client, who is the person who's ready to buy now. They're like done researching, they're done trying to get it done on their own, they're done with all these things. And it's been really fun to be able to develop those out along with the nurture sequence that comes with it
Mm-hmm.
for people at all levels of business. I have people just starting,
Mm-hmm.
coming out of corporate, working with them on that. And then ones who are like, oh, I've pivoted or I've niched down and I need an update, right? And so to answer your question, I think one of the biggest mistakes that people make is they say, oh, well, I just have to get people on my list.
Yeah.
Now we're right back to where we started at the top of the hour,
Yeah.
right? It's not just getting people on your list. It's not a numbers game, y'all. It's a quality of communication, a quality of the type of client, a quality of your thought leadership
Mm-hmm.
and what you want to be known for. And I think if people just slow it down, work with somebody who understood buyer psychology and understood what their audience really wanted when they're ready to buy that consulting package, email would probably have a whole different reputation, actually.
Absolutely. You said so much. I want to unpack some of the really important bits that were in there. Number one, it's not about the numbers. And for, you and I probably started around the same time. I've been in business for about 11 or 12 years. And when I first got started, it was all about, even if you were asked to be on a summit, it was like, do you have an email list of more than 10,000? Well, guess what? Those people with email lists of more than 10,000 probably have 5,000 people that aren't paying attention. And so, really good email list hygiene is super important, that you purge your email list, even for those who don't opt out. I don't know how you feel about this, but every year we look at the hard bounces, we look at the people who are unengaged, and if it hurts your reputation online if you have a lot of people on your list who aren't opening them. Probably the reason why your open list is so high, your open rate is so high, is you've got a really engaged list and you focus on that. You just said, I cap it at 3,500. That's amazing. And the second thing you said that's super important is that the price, I call it the price of entry for lead magnets these days. The bar has been raised. You need to solve a big problem for someone in your free lead magnet. And it's usually not the first step in your protocol or program. It's you meet people where they are, you meet them where they're having the most pain. And we just over the weekend created a pricing guide for coaches and consultants. It's 21 pages and
Yeah.
goes through all the different business models and all the different pricing strategies you could apply to those. And that's, a key question that people have when they're first getting started is, how do I price and package my services? So it's not a checklist, it's not a quiz. People don't get benefit out of those anymore. So what have you seen as some of the most powerful lead magnets that work in today's buyer economy?
Yeah. Well, one of the things, so I'm a former middle school teacher. So I love teaching and training, right? Like it's my joy. It's how I convert to clients. And so I attract a lot of people because I'm teaching and training. And so one of the lead magnets that I just helped a client develop out in California. She's been in business for about 12 years, and she wanted to only, so she used to help like year-long book coaching program, and then a publishing on the back. Her life just got way too complicated, and she's like, I don't want to do any of this anymore. So what she's doing now is a 5-hour book breakthrough, and it's to get the book outlined, and then she passed them off to somebody else to do writing coaching. So she came to me and she said, I'm making this pivot. And we brainstormed on a lead magnet, and what we came up with for her, and I don't even know if I can do this justice in the little bit of time we had, but we took a good probably 2 or 3 weeks diving into her best clients who went on to write the book, right? But she's not doing that anymore. What was their biggest hurdle when they arrived on her doorstep, right? And what we determined after we looked at client data and we looked at her sales of her things and we looked back at notes was they are creative thought leaders, entrepreneurs, thinkers. They have, you and I can probably relate to this stuff. They have 40,000 sticky notes of ideas of a book here, and then they've got notes over here, and they've got notebooks over there. They've got notes in their phone. And so what we did is we designed a lead magnet to take you from overwhelmed to organized. And it's a guided video with 6 powerful questions where she guides them through what's the big idea of your book. Put all those notes aside. You're never going to go look at them anyway, right? Like, what is the big idea you're trying to get across? Who is this book for? So like high level, getting them to even think that they have the concept of a book, which they do. The problem is it's just scattered all about in a million places.
Right.
So at the end of this guided video journaling exercise, they've answered 6 in-depth questions, and they're ready now to book their call for the breakthrough. And the reason why this is working so well, and I don't necessarily mean her lead magnet because we're just going to launch it, next week, but the ones that I've created that are similar to that, there's a teaching element, there's a personal, whether it's an audio or a video element, so people can hear us in our element, right? There's this psychology of voice. There's the psychology of hearing, how much people actually care, how much passion they have. But it also aligns to the exact offer that she wants to sell. And so I think a lot of people, you and I included, we were instructed, develop these quick lead magnets, just get them on your list. They didn't even match the thing that we were trying to solve for people. And so I reverse engineer all of that. The beauty of the lead magnets that I'm creating with people is they can take the pieces of them, and this is usually the next step I help them do, and they can run free webinars or free workshops. It's already developed. I have this beautiful brain and a background in educational and curriculum design. And so when I design something like that, I'm looking for the longevity of how it can be used in multiple ways and multiple spaces over time.
Amazing. And we share that education background, by the way. I always say you can take the teacher out of the classroom, but you can't take the teacher, the education, the desire to teach out of the person. And
Absolutely.
I think it's part of what makes a good coach too, especially those who do training programs and bring people along a path. So Shannon, you have dropped so much wisdom in our conversation today. I could go on and on and on because, what you've just opened up is the whole pathway that people take to becoming a client and going deeper and deeper with you and your content. And but let's pause here and we'll save the rest for another day. And let us know how people can get in touch with you. What is the best way for them to take the next step? You mentioned a free offer before. I'd love to get that into show notes as well.
Yes, I'd love to find that for you, and I'm going to send it. But in the meantime, people can, I'd love, one, you can connect with me on LinkedIn. I'm pretty active over there and I have a lot of fun. You can also go to joyfulbusinessrevolution.com / this is a fun one, y'all, 65 story ideas. And this is a curated list of story marketing ideas to get your creative juices going for your email list and new ways to develop that email community and new ideas, because let's face it, sometimes we all just get bored with our own ideas.
Yes, and ChatGPT might not be your best source. So, so go over to joyfulbusinessrevolution.com, grab those free resources. Follow Shannon on LinkedIn. She's got an amazing LinkedIn newsletter all about email marketing that everyone needs to follow. And we will put all of this into the show notes. So 65 store ideas. Love that, Shannon. Thank you for your generosity and sharing your wisdom with our listeners here today. That's it for today's episode, my friend. We will see you next time. Bye, Shannon.
Bye.